Power bill through the roof? At 320 Solar, that power bill will be no more. In fact, about 90% of our customers report lower solar payments than with electricity. That's more power in your pocket. 320 Solar. Power up.
Things happen in threes. Try this. Red, white, and blue. The good, the bad, the ugly. Earth, wind, and fire. 3 sheets to the wind. But can it happen this year for Tampa Bay sports fans? That's what you guys are asking yourselves. Can all of our teams win a championship in the same year? You know it's only happened one other time before. Get this. 1935 in Detroit. When Detroit teams won the Stanley Cup, the Tigers won a Major League Baseball, and the Lions won the NFL championship. Right now, Tampa Bay is trying to match that and do exactly the same thing. As you know, the Lightning did its part last night by wrapping up the Stanley Cup, the second time they've won that great honor and won that great cup. The Tampa Bay Rays won the American East, and now they started the playoffs today with a 3-1 victory over Toronto. This is a best-of-3 series. And as you know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will try to become the first team to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium, and obviously will try to win it there as well. So don't say it can't happen, because this is 2020, and absolutely anything can and will happen. We've seen that already. Hello again, everybody. I'm Al Keck, and welcome to the Al Keck Show, brought to you by the Deck Bar and Grill at Isla del Sol. The Deck has become really the place to watch sports in the Tampa Bay area. Big screen TVs galore all over the restaurant. Best food, drink, atmosphere you can find. Live music Thursday through the weekend, and some incredible food specials. How about this? Spaghetti and meatballs Monday night for less than $6. Where do you beat that? The Deck Bar and Grill, so happy to have the Deck and Cedric Robinson as our big sponsors here for the Al Keck Show. All right, guys, we have all heard this from our ladies. Doesn't matter if you're married, if you have a partner, if you have a friend, if you have a former friend, but we've all heard this phrase. In fact, I am sure that Adam heard this from Eve in the Garden of Eden. The phrase is, "You're being defensive." Thank goodness the Buccaneers are taking that to a whole new level. The Buccaneers continue to ride their defense these early days of the NFL season. And right now, the Buccaneers own the 4th best defense in the entire National Football League. They're giving up 308 yards per game. The only teams that are better, the Colts, the Steelers, the Niners. 12 sacks on the season. That's top 3 in the league. And it was all about defense Sunday in that 28-10 win at Denver. Now, it was not the fanciest win, and I always like to say they're not exactly going to put the game balls and display them at the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. But that Buccaneer defense continues to dominate. 6 sacks. They gave up only 13 first downs to Denver, 226 yards of offense. Now, granted, Denver is winless. And granted, Denver is decimated by injuries, but the Buccaneers have never really played well in Denver. Tom Brady had a losing record going into that game against the Broncos, and the Buccaneers' MO has been that in recent years, they don't play well against teams that have backup quarterbacks. That was until Sunday. And thanks to the defense and starting off in that first quarter very early in the ball game, how about a block punt by the Buccaneers special teams? We haven't seen that for a while. All this was crucial. Why was it crucial? Well, because this offense is still continuing to grow under Tom Brady. I said grow and not grown. It's growing. Tom Brady was efficient. 297 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. But the Buccaneers scored all of 5 points in the second half. They have to do better than that. Still, they do what they have to do. They go on the road, tough place to play in Denver. They get a win, and then they leave Dodge. And the Buccaneers leave with a 2-1 record. That leads the NFC South. All right, time to play WTF. What the fat? And you know, there is a good, what the fat? And there is a bad, what the fat? All right, let's begin with the good. At 2-1, the Bucs all alone atop the NFC South. Almost said the NFC Central. That's going back a ways. The NFC South. Those big, bad New Orleans Saints who couldn't help but pound their chest and beat their chest after beating the Bucs in Week 1. I haven't done a thing since. They've dropped 2 straight. They've lost games to the Raiders and Green Bay. So maybe the Saints aren't all that tough after all. What the fat? Tom Brady can provide big plays for this offense. 47 yards to Scotty Miller, 33 yards to O.J. Howard. Yes, there was an O.J. Howard sighting this weekend. 30 yards to Chris Godwin. Too bad Brady is in his 40s and no longer has a big-time arm. What the fat? Okay, now to the bad. What the fat? More penalties. And that took away decent runs and stopped the running game. Only 68 yards rushing for the Bucs. They expected to do a whole bunch more. Remember, Leonard Fournette, a year ago, ran for a career-high 225 yards against much of this same Denver defense. And it was a Denver defense that wasn't as good, wasn't supposed to be as good Sunday as it was last year because Von Miller, their all-pro everything, has been out for the season. 9 penalties overall, many on the offensive line. Donovan Smith just isn't playing well. He just isn't, and he continues to be the weakest link on this offense right now. So what the fat? Injuries. Chris Godwin, Sean Murphy-Bunting both came away with leg muscle injuries. Godwin, a hamstring. Murphy-Bunting, a hamstring and a groin. Early talk that the Buccaneers are preparing for the Chargers coming up on Sunday at home without having these 2 guys. What the fat? All right. I love talking to my guests that I have tonight, have for a whole lot of years. Great quarterbacking talk tonight was Sean King, Gibbs High in St. Pete. The Bucs' second-round pick back in 1999, pulled in as a rookie and quarterbacked the Buccaneers all the way to the NFC Championship game. In fact, many believe should have won that NFC Championship game and gone on to the Super Bowl in his rookie year. Even though Sean only played 5 seasons as a Buccaneer, he is still a very important part of Buccaneer history. Enjoy Sean King. Let's hear from a man that knows what it's like to quarterback this franchise, Sean King. Sean, your thoughts on the Buccaneers now that they're standing 2-1 and after getting that win at Denver?
I'm excited. I think the entire fan base is excited. I'm sure the organization, it's a sigh of relief because the one thing I don't think was talked about, Al, the Bucs didn't really know what their strengths and weaknesses were with Brady because they didn't have a preseason. So normally in the preseason, you kind of figure out, we think we're going to be good here, but we're not sure, how well do we do this? Maybe we're deficient in this area, so we have to game plan to hide it. And I think you're starting to see the offense start to hit their groove because they're figuring out in real time what everyone can do.
That was a question I was going to ask you. Okay. Here's Brady, one of your veterans. He's seen it all. He's done it all. But not having OTAs and a limited training camp, so to speak, no preseason games, would that really affect him? And has that really affected him?
Well, I think it's affected him because of his age. The NFL is very unkind to when you become an over-the-hill player as opposed to when you have an opportunity to kind of sustain your success. You see that happening with Drew Brees. And so Tom and Drew are kind of in the same boat. I think their minds are as sharp as ever, but physically they're still trying to find that new comfort zone at this advanced age. What can I do athletically from a consistency standpoint, week in and week out? How does my body recover when I have little dings and bangs? And I think you're starting to see Brady get more comfortable with his teammates and with where he is physically each week.
So as a former NFL quarterback looking at a current NFL quarterback, does he still have the arm? Can he handle all these weapons? Can he handle this offense? Can he handle all this attention? How's he looking to you? Does he still have it?
He looks more than adequate. He looks good. I mean, he looks like as long as the pieces around him continue to improve and play at a high level, we've got enough weapons for him to manage the game and be Brady in spurts and small windows of the game. And we're going to be a playoff team. And once you get in the playoffs, then that's why we went out and got a guy like Brady, because he has another magical run in him. Hopefully that's this year.
I know there's always comparisons, or there always will be comparisons now, between Brady and Jameis, from what you've seen so far. Your thoughts on that?
I think they're unfair, especially in a Bucs uniform. I mean, we drafted Jameis. It was not a consensus because of some of the things that happened at Florida State. Half the fan base was pro Jameis. The other half was we should have taken Marcus Mariota. He came into an organization that was not nearly as talented on offense as they are now. Whereas Brady comes with all of the credibility that any player has ever had in this game. I mean, multiple champion, multiple MVP, consummate leader. He's won in New England without all-pro talent around him. So it's interesting. This is probably the most offensive talent Tom Brady's ever had in his career that he has this year in Tampa.
What's it like to quarterback all those weapons? Do you find yourself looking at Mike Evans and saying, I need to get you the ball more, or looking at Gronk and saying, you know what, I've got to find you in the end zone? Do you find yourself going through that as a quarterback?
You do, and I think it's the trust quotient. You have talented guys around you, but how much do you trust them? Well, this is what Brady and his skill players are developing, is a trust from Brady in them and them in Brady that 2020, we can operate at our highest optimal output down in and down out. Mike Evans, all-star receiver, hadn't had a lot of real-time experience with Tom Brady. Goodwin coming off of a great year. O.J. Howard still trying to develop him. Leonard Fournette just got there. Ronald Jones trying to establish himself in this league as a legitimate running back. So you got a lot of pieces that are kind of in different individual pursuits that are trying to gel and come together as a unit and an offensive team. So they're going to continually get better, I think, every week that they get another chance to go out and gain more experience and trust in each other.
As a former quarterback in this league, and again, you've seen all the great quarterbacks that have been playing in this league lately, and when you see them and then you look what you went through, is there a big difference between a Brady and everybody else, or a Drew Brees and everybody else? Or is it that everyone's talented and it's all about situations?
Well, I think both, opinions are true. Everyone's talented, and it's about your situation. But at the same time, if everybody was Drew Brees and Tom Brady, then everybody would be an MVP of the league and have thrown for a gazillion yards and have championships and Super Bowls. So what they've done is unique, and they should be honored for it by their peers, because it's very hard to do, the consistency that both of those guys have shown. But if you ask me, are they the most talented quarterbacks in the league? No. But they found a way to come back each year and be a better version of themselves than they were the year before. And that's why they have the accolades and accomplishments that they have.
All right, I've got to ask you, who have you seen in this league, or who did you see in this league? And you looked at them and said, man, they are talented. Maybe don't have the wins and losses, but that's a talented player.
Jameis is a perfect example. Since this is a Bucs pod and we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just keep it right here in-house. Jameis is more talented than Drew Brees and Tom Brady. And I truly think when he gets his next opportunity as a starter in this league, people are going to see that talent manifest itself in consistency. The one thing Jameis hasn't been able to find yet in his career is consistency. And by that, I mean, we know what his floor is every week. See, that's what separates Brady and Brees. Their floor is really high. Like, the worst they're going to play is at a level where we can still win. Jameis has to raise his floor. You know, what happened to him is his highs were as good as anyone in the league. But he had a tendency to turn the ball over, and his floor made it almost impossible for his team to win. But I think moving forward, you're going to see an outstanding version of Jameis Winston, and I'm excited for this next chapter in his life as a starter in the National Football League. And let me say this. It's a travesty that Jameis Winston did not get an opportunity to go somewhere and be the starting quarterback. I do think he did enough in Tampa to earn that right.
Fascinating answer. Now, I want to ask you about you when you were drafted by your hometown team, and you're going into a team that's got the likes of Sapp and Brooks and Lynch and Allstott. How did you have to prove yourself to these guys, or did you have to prove yourself to these guys?
Well, my situation was unique because we were picked to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, very few quarterbacks inherit a team that has expectations of that caliber. So the NFL was so different. You know, I'll never forget this. And, you know, John Gruden's doing an outstanding job in Oakland. I know they lost in New England yesterday, but they're 2-1. They're looking good on offense. But this is how far the National Football League has come. John did not believe in the shotgun. Like, if you go back and look at those teams under Gruden, we were under center in the 2-minute offense. Now there isn't even something called the 2-minute offense because it's all hurry up. It's all shotgun centric. It's all spread people out, get the ball accurately to your playmakers in space. Whereas when I came into the league, it was a fullback, tight end, run the football, convert on third down game. So there was a lot more pressure on young quarterbacks because you didn't get a lot of attempts and opportunities. So the mistakes were magnified. Having said that, I couldn't have had a more supportive organization. You know, Tony Dungy, Rich McKay, you know, those guys really embraced me. This community embraced me. The guys you mentioned, Sapp, Brooks, Ward, Allstott, they all embraced me. They understood the challenges that I had being in that situation as a young quarterback, and I tried to do the best that I could do.
So they didn't try to intimidate you. They tried to just accept you and let you build and grow from there.
Yes, and the only thing that I wish was a little different, I never got the chance to actually be a young quarterback. Because from day one, the first snap against Seattle when Trent got hurt, we were in a playoff-type pressure cooker every game the rest of my career in Tampa. It was never, you can be Joe Burrow, and we don't even expect to win 4 games this year. We're going to go out. We want you to play freely. You know, if you make mistakes, okay, so be it. You know, we're going to get better around you. We're going to develop. It was, hey, we got to win. Don't turn it over. And, you know, listen, you deal with the hand you're dealt, and some great memories are there. But, you know, every young quarterback would like to, you know, get that year and a half, 2 years, you can go out and just kind of play freely and not worry about, you know, if I mess up, you know, you know, the whole city's going to be upset with me.
When you were at Tulane, when did you know that you could be a quarterback in the NFL?
Well, I knew that at Gibbs. I don't think anyone else knew until my senior year at Tulane. But, like, I've always had a self-confidence, you know, because I think you need that in order to continually go from high school to college to hopefully have an opportunity to play in the pros. Is you got to believe in yourself. Now the hard part is getting other people to agree with your opinion of yourself. And that only comes through performance. So, my last 2 years at Tulane, praise God, my performance was something that some NFL teams thought gave me the opportunity and potential to maybe play in the National Football League. And what an experience to grow up a Buck fan. I never forget, Al, when I was a kid, I was a diehard Buck fan. We never sold out the old sombrero. So the only time the Bucs were on TV was when they were on the road. So my dad's a Baptist minister. Anybody that knows a Baptist church, they don't get out of church till 2:30, 3 o'clock. So I'd have to sneak out of church when the Bucs were on the road so I can get home and watch them play. So to then go back and be able to put that uniform on, great times.
I heard a story about you, and this was right about the time that you were getting drafted, that you had gone to the Buccaneers before your senior year, may have been even before your junior year, and you would talk to them about getting an internship in their PR department or maybe even in their PR office as a job, never really thinking that you'd be a second-round pick for this team. Is that a true story?
Yeah, kind of. So what happened was I was named, I think, the high school player of the week. I think it was Vision Cable at the time. And, at the time, one of the Bucs players, in this instance, it happened to be Lamar Thomas, presented the award. So we went over with Vision Cable and they filmed it and he presented me with the reward. And afterwards I told him, I said, one day I'm gonna be your quarterback. And he always tells this story, he giggles, he's like, he patted me on the head like, okay, little fella. But man, it's crazy, and this is kind of a message for all the young people out there that are chasing their dreams. If you believe in yourself and work really hard, you never know where the chips may lay. You never know, what possibilities are out there. So I had great support at home by my mother and father. My family supported me and I kept working and, it worked out.
You played for some really good head coaches. You played for
Great
Tony
head
Dungy.
coach.
You played for John Gruden. Talk about the differences, and are they as good inside the building as when it appears out?
They're both phenomenal men. They're both great coaches. The only difference between Tony and John is John's an offensive guy and Tony's a defensive guy. So if you follow the finances, when Tony was in Tampa, all of our resources were on the defensive side of the ball. Go look at the top 10, 12 highest paid players on the Bucs roster. They were all on defense because Tony's a defensive guy. Then when John came in, John's an offensive guy. So now you see the Keenan McCardells, the Joe Jureviciuses, the Ricky Dudleys, the Thomas Jones, the Michael Pittmans, the Joey Galloway. You start to see all of these guys now coming on offense, and it's just kind of the temperature of the head coach. A defensive head coach says we're going to be great on defense, and we're going to bring the offense along. An offensive head coach says we're going to be great on offense, and we're going to bring the defense along. So I think that's the biggest difference between the two outside the language.
Sean King, I could talk to you all day, but I've got to let you go. But I want to thank you for taking the time to join me. And whatever you do this season, make sure you enjoy this football season watching this football team.
Absolutely. I'm having a ball, and go Bucs.
Absolutely great conversation with Sean King. The fascinating comments on Jameis Winston and Tom Brady and being a starting quarterback from the minute that rookie year, having to go in. And as he said, he never got a chance to be a young quarterback and develop in this league, let alone the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So really great stuff with Sean King. I so thank him for joining us. You're watching the Al Keck Show, brought to you by the Deck Bar and Grill, Isla del Sol, the place to watch the Bucs, the Lightning, as you know, the Rays. Just a great place, great food, great drink, great atmosphere, music on the weekends. Cedric Robinson and the Deck Bar and Grill, Isla del Sol. They are absolutely awesome. All right, as usual, I'm coming to you live from the palatial Peter Blake Studios. My producer, Peter Blake, is with us. And Peter, happy Lightning and Stanley Cup.
Absolutely. I mean, how are Lightning fans feeling right now? How is the Tampa Bay area feeling about a Stanley Cup championship The first time it's happened since 2004, 16 years ago. How are you feeling about the Rays? Last time I checked, I don't know if we got the update on the score, but they were beating the
3-1
Blue.
the final. They
3-1.
beat Toronto.
So
Yeah.
there you go, 3-1. They're going for a possible World Series. And then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking care of business on Sunday. So if you're a Tampa Bay sports fan, there is a potpourri, if you will, of different sports here that everybody should be excited about.
And it's difficult. Every single night you're going, okay, now I've got to watch this from here to here. And then this comes on. I got to watch that. And I might have to DVR this. And, some great stuff going on after all the problems that we had earlier in March, April, May with nothing going on. And that's not the case right now. We're now seeing absolutely the best of everything. Any comments?
Yes, we got Sitton who says, yes, sir, Big Al. And Christopher Cole says, is it just me? Or is our defense fast and physical?
Well, obviously it's fast and physical. It's one of the best defenses right now in the National Football League. And I have to admit, a year ago, I just couldn't see it. I mean, this defense wasn't playing anything like this. And I couldn't see those young players. I couldn't see the development, and I couldn't see the possibility of these guys developing. And then they did. And I think JPP, him coming back and adding to that rush, and everything started to come together. And now this young secondary is one of the most talked about groups in the entire National Football League. And they are aggressive. They are fast. They are athletic, and they're playing big time.
They're absolutely playing big time. You have Devin White, who's healthy, who's comfortable. This defense seems like they're very comfortable. And I feel like, again, like I said last night, the NFL should be petrified because this offense, we haven't even seen the best of it. So once you get that in gear, and then on top of it, you're not turning over the football and you're playing great defense. Look, you can have all the offense you want to, but at the end of the day, what does it come down to? Defense wins championships. You have a defense that plays like that. Got to get your thoughts on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, everybody's saying Lamar Jackson is the chosen one. The Ravens are going to run roughshod on him. And once again, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs prove him wrong.
He is just some kind of special because that's one of the best defenses in all of football. And to go into their house and play the way that he did,
right,
and to dominate that team the way he did. Now, a lot of people say you really can't send a message 2-3 games into the season, especially to a team that you may see later on come playoff time. That was a message. And that was a message for later in the season because the Chiefs wanted to say, okay, Lamar Jackson, defense, we're hearing all this stuff about how you guys think you can hang with us. We'll see you in January. Just remember this. We'll see you in January.
Any doubts about Lamar Jackson? I know he was the MVP last year, but it seems like when he faces a good defense, he's not that good against them when they force him to throw the ball. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know.
He's still young.
He's
still young.
Right.
And I think one of the things that at least bothered me in watching that game last night is that Baltimore panicked.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City jumps out to that early lead. And instead of doing what they normally do, which is hang with the run game and just try to shorten the game down, all of a sudden they try to out Kansas City.
Right.
They're not going to win that way.
No.
And Lamar Jackson isn't going to win that way against that defense and against that quarterback. So I think the next time they play, and I think they will play again in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think Baltimore, at least I think they should get back to pounding the football, even if they fall behind early, and just be patient. They had no patience.
They had no patience at all.
Showed.
Yeah, and I tell you right now, I'm kind of thinking that's a whole thing of he can't get past Kansas City. He can't win a playoff game in Jackson. Will be in the back of his mind if that happens again in the playoffs. If they do meet in the playoffs again, that's going to come up.
Well, he'll be reminded
constantly.
They could go and they can win the rest of their games this season. And then in week 16 or the last regular season game, they're going to say, you're getting ready for the playoffs. Is that game against Kansas City in your guys' mind? Will that affect you guys as you prepare for the playoffs coming up? They're not going to they're going to be affected by that. But that's just the way it is. I mean, how many times did Peyton Manning have to answer questions about, Tom Brady? How many times you can go right on down the list with some of these great quarterbacks and great teams. I mean, with the 49ers and the Giants, they were always answering questions about themselves, depending on the year. Yeah. So
how'd you do in fantasy football this week?
And I had Patrick Mahomes, and I lost by 0.02.
I heard this.
Points.
Rick Hughes.
Hughes.
Right. I beat Joshua Cole Allen, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I had Russell Wilson. He had 50 points.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So he still doesn't have a win.
Yeah. But
so the biggest trash talker that was trash talking you.
Yeah.
He's got nothing now.
Yeah. I mean, I played my homecoming game in week 1 against him. But Rick Hughes, I mean, I'm watching that game and I'm thinking, you know what? All it takes is one more pass.
Yeah.
And my problem was, and fantasy fans are going to identify with this, I had Patrick Mahomes, but I also had the Ravens defense. And the Ravens kicker. So going into this, I mean, I did not expect to win this week, but all of a sudden I start doing decent things before I even get to Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I just thought, okay, Mahomes, I think, will do his thing. But all he needed was one more completion, one more yard running, one more anything. I lost by 0.02.
Unbelievable.
And you know what? He got the lead. He hung on. He gets the win. And so I'm 2-1.
We got a question here from Joseph Campbell. Do you think we can keep our defense together after this season? I would hate to let any of these guys go. I would love to see them grow and get more chemistry together. I want to answer this question. I kind of think Ndamukong Suh, this is his last year. If they win a Super Bowl this year or go to the playoffs, he's getting up there in age. I could see him going, possibly even a Levante David if they're re-signing a Chris Godwin and a Shaq Barrett, because those are the decisions you really have to make.
I mean, those are tough. And
right.
So what I would do if I'm the Bucs, I do whatever I can to keep Levante David. Now,
yeah.
It may not be the type of deal that Levante wants, and he may be able to go out and play for somebody more, play for somebody and get more money, but it won't be a team that's as talented as this team. So, that's, those are problems you want to have.
Right. We heard $17 million. So
there you go.
It's a lot of money. So back to the Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, 40 years of sports broadcasting experience, WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28. Of course, this segment with your son, Kyle Keck, brought to you by 320solar.com. 320solar.com. Absolutely a great deal. Tell them about it.
Oh, that is a great deal. In fact, they're talking like if you join me for my Sunday radio show on 102.5 The Bone, they will pay. If you get a quote, just have them come out to your place and just let them give you a quote. They will pay your next 3 months power bills. Okay. Up to a certain amount. I can't remember what it is, but still that's incredible because all they're doing is giving you a quote, great stuff. And of course, this time of year, we're all looking for ways to save money. 320 Solar. All right, let's get more from the National Football League. Kyle Keck joins us from Chicago. And Kyle, happy Lightning and happy Stanley Cup.
Yes, go Bolts. That was big for the city of Tampa Bay. It's been a long time coming for the Lightning with all the great teams that they've had recently, especially after last year, the way that they, what you would say, they totally blew it last year in the first round of the playoffs. To come back in a tough year, tough environment in a bubble, to win the Stanley Cup decisively that way was awesome to see. And obviously Tampa Bay loved it with the parties that they had going on last night. But let's get into the NFL. Today, we had our first COVID scare COVID outbreak in the NFL. You know, we saw it last week with the Falcons with their prized first-round pick in A.J. Terrell out of Clemson. He got put on the COVID list and missed the game. That game was in jeopardy. The Falcons-Bears game was talked about possibly being postponed, but they ended up playing. They didn't have any positive tests outside of A.J. Terrell, so they were good to go. But today we found out the Tennessee Titans, they had 8 total personnel that tested positive. 3 players, 5 staff members, again, all tested positive for COVID after returning from the Minnesota Vikings game on Sunday. Now, after it came out that these positive tests were confirmed, the Titans decided to quarantine themselves. They closed down the facilities to everybody. They are self-isolating. They're doing everything this week from home, game prep, everything. And the Minnesota Vikings are doing the exact same since these two teams just played each other on Sunday. Now, they're trying to figure out where these tests are coming from, how these guys got contracted the virus, if it was contracted in Minneapolis or after the fact. And because of that, and since it's unknown, they don't know as of right now, the Vikings have decided to shut down their facilities as well. They are doing everything from home. They're self-isolating until they get all of their tests back and have all positive tests. It was confirmed as to who are the players for the Tennessee Titans that were that did contract the virus. Those players are defensive tackle Daquan Jones, long snapper Bo Brinkley, and tight end Tommy Hudson. So Daquan Jones does get quite a bit of playing time for the Titans on their defense, but obviously a long snapper, you don't have a lot of those on the roster, so that's not a good thing. But typically an easy replacement. And Tommy Hudson is a tight end on their team that saw very few playing time behind Jonnu Smith and Aaron Ferkser. So players that are not necessarily going to be totally missed if they do end up playing this weekend, but still, the Titans and Steelers, who is their opponent for Sunday, that game is in jeopardy of being missed. As of right now, it has been reported that they are pursuing it as if they will be playing on Sunday, with a backup plan of postponing it to Monday night if needed.
And here is the problem. Okay, imagine if you're Tennessee. The facility's closed. That means no practice time. And I know you can have meetings and I know you can have all that stuff. But again, you think about a football player's life, lifting weights, working out, and going over things in practice, not even being able to practice. I think that puts Tennessee at a huge disadvantage. And if the NFL says, tough, you got to play Monday night and maybe only have one day of practice, that's tough, but that's life right now in 2020.
Yeah, and it is for Tennessee specifically. Now the Vikings, they could end up getting back to practice tomorrow or Thursday if their positive tests come back quick enough. Okay, but for the Titans specifically, the soonest that they could get back to their facilities is Saturday. So they would have one day, not even a full day, to get ready for Sunday if they did play on Sunday. Now, luckily for the Titans, the game is in Nashville, so they don't have to travel. They don't have to worry about anything like that. But again, if you wait till Saturday to be able to get game prep stuff done on the field just for a walkthrough, I'm sure they're happy that they have no risk of injuries this week. But that is, especially when you've got the Steelers coming to town. I mean, that's tough. And of course, football guy Mike Vrabel, he comes out and says there are absolutely no excuses for this football team to lose on Sunday, even if they just get one day on Saturday.
And I get that, and I certainly understand, and I admire him for that. But that's going to be life this year in the National Football League, and every team, believe me, this is going to be mentioned in every facility today, tomorrow, the rest of the week, because all it takes is one person to go to the wrong place, be in the wrong place at the wrong time, around the wrong person. He brings that back into the facility, and you're staring at the same thing. You are staring at the same thing. And the National Football League, believe me, they ain't got to wait. They ain't. They're going to go forward And if you can't field a team because of COVID, oh well, oh well. So, yeah, interesting. What else is going on?
Well, let's look at the opponent for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week, the Los Angeles Chargers. Last week during their game against the Panthers, their top free agent signing that they had in the offseason, defensive back Chris Harris Jr., all-pro defensive back who had a great career in Denver prior to going to LA. He has suffered a foot injury and is potentially at risk of missing up to 6 weeks. So he is out for this week against the Buccaneers. I'm sure the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers are singing praises, as Harris has been known to be a pesky shadow cornerback. The Chargers already have a very stingy secondary with Chris Harris and Desmond King and Casey Hayward. They lost Derwin James, but still a secondary that is very tough for them to lose Chris Harris. And they also recently lost Melvin Ingram, who's one of their anchors on their defense. So now the Chargers are banged up walking into week 4 at Ray J. Chris Harris, just to reiterate how big this loss is for the Chargers, Harris in weeks 1 and 2 played 100% of the snaps, and last week played 71% of the snaps until he was hurt. So big injury for the Chargers. And on the other side of things, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's not looking good for their wide receiver, Chris Godwin, as well, who already missed week 2 against the Carolina Panthers. Godwin left that Denver game in the second half with a hamstring injury. He is listed as doubtful for Sunday, and they're saying he could miss multiple weeks with this injury. Again, the hamstring injury, we've seen it with Mike Evans. We've seen it with Kenny Golladay. We've seen it with a lot of big-name wide receivers. These soft tissue injuries are tending to be pretty popular right now, especially with no preseason. These bodies are not quite as primed the way that they normally are going into the NFL season. And Godwin, he missed time at the end of last season with hamstring injury. So this is something to monitor the same way that we monitored Mike Evans' hamstring injury. Evans ultimately was able to tough it out and play week 1 when he had that lingering hamstring injury. But Godwin is looking like he's missing this week and possibly 1 to 2 weeks after that. So with that, how confident are you in this Tampa Bay receiving corpse of Scotty Miller, who would, get more playing time, Justin Watson, if he's healthy, these tight ends? We saw the emergence of Gronkowski and a big catch by OJ Howard last week. And even we saw Tyler Johnson get on the field last week. So what's your confidence level in this Tampa Bay wide receiver corpse and tight end corp if Godwin does miss this week and beyond?
Well, they have so many weapons, and I can guarantee you that if there was anybody that kind of lit up as soon as he saw the injuries in that Chargers secondary, it was Mike Evans. Evans had 2 catches last week. Wasn't it 2 catches?
Yeah.
Both touchdowns.
Yeah.
They were short touchdowns. They weren't much. So Tom Brady keeps talking about how he wants to get Mike Evans involved more. This may be a week where that happens. And when you have these many weapons, and this is what he did with the Patriots, any given week, you didn't know what to expect because they might run the football one week. They may make, one receiver the prime target the next. That was what the Patriots did. And they didn't have the weapons that the Buccaneers have. So the main thing is that you just hope Chris Godwin can get that hamstring healthy, period. And you don't want to rush him back because you don't want this to be chronic and continue to bother him throughout the rest of the season. You want him to be healthy. Anyone that's ever had a hamstring, in fact, I remember the first time I had a problem with the hamstring, I always thought a hamstring was you're a little sore, on the back of your leg. And that was a bad hamstring. No, when you truly pull a hamstring, you can't do anything. And you can test it, you can think you're fine, and then all of a sudden it grabs you again, and it grabs you, and it's an injury that you have to make sure that you are completely healthy from.
Yeah, absolutely. And Godwin is a guy that if you got to have him miss time, it's this week against a banged up Chargers defense at home, because again, their stretch of games after this. They play a stingy Bears defense. They play the Packers, who
the next week on a short week.
Correct, on a short week, Thursday night in Chicago, which is never, fans there are never an easy place to play. And then you've got Green Bay at home, and then you've got the Raiders, and then you've got the Saints. So again, if he's got to miss a game, you're hoping he can miss the Chargers. We can get by this week, and then he's ready to go for those upcoming games. But let's move on to Would You Rather, powered by 320 Solar. And our first Would You Rather, let's go to Philly, the dumpster fire that is there in the city of brotherly love. Would you rather continue to play Carson Wentz, or would you rather bring in Jalen Hurts to start right now?
And believe me, and this is classic Philadelphia, they are calling for Jalen Hurts. I mean, they forget that, again, Carson Wentz was one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he was healthy here the last few weeks. He's just had a bad start to the season. Who knows why? But Philadelphia fans are kind of over it after a week 3. And so they're calling for the Eagles to make a quarterback change, and they don't care if it's the fact that, all right, if we change quarterbacks and we never have Carson Wentz again, that's fine. That's fine. We'll go with the shiny, new, pretty toy in Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts may end up being a very good NFL quarterback, but not 4 weeks into the season. And for people to fall off that bandwagon that quickly with Wentz, my goodness, that's surprising. So anyway, I would still stay with Wentz, even if it means you stay with him for the rest of the season, because then you've got to find out what he has and what he can truly do. And I believe, excuse me if I'm wrong here, that big new contract that he signed a couple years ago doesn't kick in until next year. So this could be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's especially the whole contract ripple of things. I myself am kind of on the other side of things, to where I would almost, be more privy to throwing Jalen Hurts in, because again, Wentz, he's been injury prone. He's had a lot of bad injuries, and he's had a lot of really great games. This year, not so much, but nobody on the Eagles is doing much of anything. You have no healthy wide receivers. You lost Dallas Goedert, who fractured his ankle. Nobody on the defense is doing anything worth a darn. Miles Sanders has been banged up. And so to me, I feel like if this is Wentz's last year there, if they have a really bad season, why do him the disservice of throwing him out there with nothing to play with and also risk another year of another really bad injury? To me, I think you just throw Jalen Hurts in there, and in a division that is up for grabs, you never know if Hurts gives him that spark. And if they do end up, being terrible and being one of the bottom teams of the league, there's pretty good quarterbacks there in the draft next year. But I don't know, a lot of crazy things going in Philly. But I don't know. I think they need some sort of spark. They need something. Maybe Hurts is the guy. But
so you would go with Hurts over Carson Wentz, even if it means you're saying goodbye to Wentz and you're giving up on him 3 games into this season.
You saw what Foles could do. And a lot of Philly fans were quick to forget what Wentz did for that team when he went down and Foles brought them to glory. I don't think that I personally, I think I would, just because it's something that would give some sort of spark to a team that has absolutely nothing going for them, and they just had to kiss their sister against the Cincinnati Bungholes last week. So, I think you put in something with the spark, and Jalen Hurts is a type of guy that I think Doug Peterson is very excited to get to. But let's go on to the next one. Let's keep the quarterback train rolling. The New York football teams, the Giants, the Jets. And this is the same sort of thing that we were talking about with Wentz. Okay, these are 2 young quarterbacks that are only 2 years, 1 year, or they're in their second year in the league, and neither of which are doing much. Neither of which have much going for them on the offensive side of the ball, especially Jones now that Saquon's gone. both these teams could potentially be picks number 1 and 2 next year in the draft. Do you keep Darnold or Jones if you have the chance to get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields?
I go after Trevor Lawrence, whichever team ends up. And I do think one of the New York teams could end up getting that number 1 pick. Whichever team it is, I take Trevor Lawrence. And you can deal with your other quarterback, be it Darnold or Daniel Jones. You can deal with that from there. But, Trevor Lawrence, wherever he goes, will at least the first part of the season anyway, will be the Zion Williamson, of the National Football League, because he will bring such incredible attention both on and off the field, and people will be fascinated by this guy, and he will mean so much in so many other different ways of making money. So I think whomever gets the number 1 pick, unless it's, some crazy weird thing to where someone makes a weird trade, Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. And you take a guy like that because everyone says he's a once in a generation type of quarterback, which right now in the NFL, you need a once in a generation type of quarterback.
100%. And I can guarantee you this, if it is the Jets with the number 1 pick, Adam Gase will be long gone. They'll bring in a new head coach, and that head coach is going to want Trevor Lawrence to be his shiny new toy over Sam Darnold. And honestly, Judge there for the Giants, if it is the Giants, he may think the same exact thing because Jones wasn't his quarterback that he picked. And these new head coaches love to have their guy as their quarterback. You see it with almost every brand new coach that comes in, they get their new quarterback. You see the Panthers with Matt Rule, he gets his guy in Teddy Bridgewater. And Bruce,
if Carolina were to get that number 1 pick, they would take Trevor Lawrence.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
And if Jacksonville gets the number 1 pick,
they're taking Lawrence. Yeah, of course.
Lawrence as well. A lot of these head coaches, when you take a Trevor Lawrence, you're now adding a year or 2 to your contract, and it gives you a little more time. Now, you could take a Sam Darnold and you could trade him away. I mean, Josh Rosen a couple of years ago brought, what was it, a 2nd round pick? I think it was from Miami. And when Arizona traded him to the Dolphins, and now Jeff Rosen is with the Bucs. So, someone will cough up a fairly high draft pick for at least, Sam Darnold. And whether or not Daniel Jones, I'm not sure, but what's wrong with competition?
Sure.
Go into training camp, see who's going to win the job. They're both young quarterbacks. You build from there and you go from there. And you could take Sam Darnold, turn him around, turn him into picks. And as far as Adam Gase is concerned, if they lose Thursday,
he's
maybe gone.
Bye-bye. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to be the end of the season with Adam Gase. It may not even be the end of the week.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody, Greenberg with ESPN, he's a big Jets guy, and he even made the bold claim that he doesn't think Adam Gase could coach youth football. That's how disgusted he is with Adam Gase. So, do we have time for one more?
One quick one.
All right, one more. Let's go. Would you rather be the 3-0 Bears with the emergence of Nick Foles, or would you rather be the Cowboys at 1-2?
Oh man.
Again, Bears, they're down 15. Of course, the Falcons, they blow everything. But they're down 15 in the fourth quarter. The Falcons, Foles comes in, scores 3 touchdowns to get them the win. And Trubisky is there just hanging in the wind. The Cowboys 1-2, they lose some tough games early on, but they're also in a division that is totally up for grabs.
Yeah, I'd rather be the Cowboys. I just would. And because they have enough talent and they will get their act together. And at the end of the season, and again, especially in that division, and that's one of the reasons why, if I'm the Eagles, I hang with this. We forget that how many times did we see the obituary written on the Patriots during their Super Bowl years when they would lose a game at the end of September, early in October, and they get spanked pretty good, and everyone says, okay, that's the end. That's the end of the Patriots. And then all of a sudden December comes and the Patriots are winning, and they get to the playoffs and they end up winning a Super Bowl. So it's a long season, and this season especially will be different than any season the National Football League has ever played. And I always go back to the San Francisco 49ers of last year, because I think that is the most important thing any team can do right now. And that is, whomever you play that you're supposed to beat, you beat them. And that was the beauty of the Bucs going to Denver. They didn't play all that great. Their defense was excellent. Their offense is slowly getting better, but that's a trap game. That's a game that a whole lot of teams would end up gagging on later in the game, and then you walk away with the loss. The Buccaneers were able to do the things you need to do to get that win. You don't get style points. You just get that win. And so San Francisco did that last year, started out 8-0, and started out with a win here over the Buccaneers. No one really expected that, and no one expected this team to jump off to the start that they did. So, I think I'd be the Cowboys.
I agree. I picked the Cowboys for one reason and one reason only. I don't have to play a bad man in Aaron Rodgers twice this season.
Yeah, there you go. Good point. And the Bucs will see him sooner rather than later. Kyle Keck, as usual, thank you very much. And I'm going to see you next week. I'm going to your place in Chicago for that Bucs-Bears game.
I absolutely cannot wait.
All right. Thanks, my man.
We'll see ya.
All right. Now, if you have followed me since I started doing this show back in July, you knew that I was on a quest to drop some of that COVID fat and to simply feel better. I'm in my mid-60s, and I just want to feel better. And so I found a product through a lady named Lynn Knowles, and she has helped me find more energy. And believe me, it also shows on the scale.
Again, I feel so much better. My clothes are fitting better. And the lady with all the info is Lynn Knowles. And Lynn, two things you told me when I signed up for this. You said, number one, everyone's different. And number two, just watch your carbs. So I have to admit to you, this has not been a restrictive diet for me. I'm simply watching my carbs. That's my diet. I've dropped about 12 pounds. My clothes are fitting better. So I'm highly impressed.
Oh my gosh, 12 pounds. I just got goosebumps, Al. That's awesome. That's awesome. You're right. It's not restrictive. It's diet independent. And I did tell you that. And I remember you kind of looked at me and went, kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it, Lynn. Well, now you can say you believe it, right? It's probably helping you not have cravings for carbs and sugars anymore. And that's really all it takes, is just being a little mindful of carbs and sugars, and it works.
The big thing for me is that I have more energy. And more energy means at 3:00 in the afternoon when it's hot outside, I'm going out to get exercise as opposed to thinking, you know what, it might rain. So I'll just stay in here. So it's getting me up, getting me out.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's because your brain is now converted to burning ketones for fuel, Al. And when you're doing that, so many things happen in your body, and you're just on this beginning of this, 90-day adventure, let's call it. You're like around day 30. And, one thing I know for sure is that my brain lit up. I have that energy, pure, clean energy, no jitters. And it's just because we're using ketones for fuel, which is our native fuel source. But, something I was thinking about, Labor Day is behind us now, right? And I do believe that one thing I'm so happy for, you kind of got this 30-day jump start on moving towards the holidays. and not gaining any weight over the holidays, because you're going to have it completely under control. And I know everybody else out there, think about that. Holidays are coming up. You've already got the COVID, maybe extra few pounds on. This is the right time. And it's 40% off, Al. I'm going to give everyone 40% off. Maybe they're not ready to buy, and that's okay. Maybe they're not ready to get started, but they can contact me and I'll just give them more information. What do you think about that?
Sounds great. So if they just call you at 727-641-4284, simply call in, get her information, and if you try it, you're going to get 40% off the first month, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They can call me at that number. They can text me, whatever's more convenient, 727-641-4284. And remember, Al Keck, you can text that name to me. I'll know exactly where you're coming from, and we can talk about it then. There's just so much to explain, Alan, and I'm just so happy for you. 12 pounds, high five, my friend. That's amazing. And I know you're feeling great, and it makes me feel great that you're feeling great.
And the people around me are noticing. So, and that's the main thing. Okay, again, text my name, Al Keck, to 727-641-4284. Lynn Knowles, as usual, Lynn knows.
So it is all about the ketones, and do yourself a favor and drop Lynn a call or a text at 727-641-4284. That's 727-641-4284, and you will feel better. And join me on this 90-day challenge. All right, I love to close with the story from my some 40-odd years covering sports around the country. And with the Buccaneers playing in Denver this last weekend, I go back to the early 80s and covering Dan Fouts and the San Diego Chargers. And ironically, they were playing Denver late in the season in Denver. Now, the weather in Denver, especially, well, at any time, it can be crazy. It can be very unpredictable. And on this day in December, it started off as a beautiful, sunny day, temperatures in the 60s. But by halftime, weather was coming in, and it got cold, and it got cloudy, and there was snow on the ground by the end of the game. Now, I'm doing a post-game show. We're going live from the Charger locker room and getting interviews. And you're taking camera equipment from that cold, snowy outside into a wet, moist, steamy locker room. Well, it fogged up our camera equipment. Not so much the lens, but the eyepiece, which is really dangerous because the photographer had trouble seeing. So I'm doing a live interview with the player. And as the player who's facing the camera starts talking, there were a group of people, reporters, standing right behind him. They hear him starting to talk, and they walk away. And when they walk away, there are two Charger offensive linemen standing there, and they're naked, completely naked. And you can see everything and every little thing that you could imagine. Well, anyway, it made Sports Illustrated the next week. The control room is screaming and yelling and telling me to get ready to come back out to me on camera and all this stuff. I'm ready to go, but all of us are just kind of standing there. It was a train wreck for 10 seconds. But still, it was a situation where those guys are seen naked on TV. And again, it made Sports Illustrated. Well, Dan Fouts said the players were really upset. And in fact, they had told Dan Fouts that they were thinking about suing the TV station. And Dan Fouts said, "You can't sue." And the players asked, why? And Fouts said, lack of evidence. With that, I want to thank Sean King. I want to thank Kyle Keck, Lynn Knowles, Megan Keck, social media expert Denise McLeod, my producer, Peter Blake, Keith Larson, Bucs Report. Thanks for joining me. I'm Al Keck. Stay safe and stay healthy.
power bill through the roof? At 320 Solar, that power bill will be no more. In fact, about 90% of our customers report lower solar payments than with electricity. That's more power in your pocket. 320 Solar. Power up.